Hello friends! I'm often asked, how can you animate over a video? How do you align the drawings and the live action? Well, for a simple static camera shot, it's really easy. And I needed exactly that to add this animation over the video of me talking during last week's official launch of my Patreon. So let me show you how I did it. So first I drew and coloured the 3 characters that I needed. And I've not created them yet, but I needed them for the Patreon site anyway, so this was an ideal chance to create them. And as I was planning to use them for more than this one video, I drew them quite large, so I could scale them down later and they'd still look clear. And I won't include all of that process in this video, but if you do want to see the full real-time streams of the drawing process and of the animation stage 2, where you can see my workflow and me explaining my thinking behind all of my decisions, it's available in 2 videos totaling 4 hours for my patrons. So, once I completed the characters, the drawings spanned 5 columns. So I collapsed all of these columns with the ink, paint, shadows and highlights into a sub-X sheet, which meant that I had a single frame for each character that I could move on screen, which made it much easier to keep all the separate parts together. Now, with all of that done, I could animate them with the video. So I opened my video in Shotcut, my video editor, and I trimmed down everything except the small section that I wanted to animate over, and then rendered that out. And the smaller the video that's used in OpenToonz, the better. And if your video doesn't move at all, then using a single frame as an image will be even better. But in this case, I wanted to time the entrance of each character with me introducing them. So I needed the timing of the video. So I rendered this shorter clip out to an MP4 for the images, and also to an MP3 file so I could import the audio separately. Because if you just import an MP4 video into OpenToonz, you don't get the audio from it, so you have to render both separately. So once they were rendered, I went back to my OpenToonz project, and I dragged the MP4 file into OpenToonz. And because I'd already set up FFmpeg, OpenToonz knew what to do with it. It just created an image sequence for the MP4. And then I dragged in the MP3 to add the audio, so that I could listen to my introductions and get the timing right. And then the fun started. So to make all 3 characters jump onto the screen, I needed them to be shown for the full length of the animation. So I put each frame from the sub-X sheet into its own column, and then extended them for the length of the animation. I then used the Animate tool to scale and position each character just below the screen. And I double checked that the default interpolation was set to speed in and speed out, which gives a nice default easing to the movement. Then, starting with the teacup, I moved him to just below the bottom of the screen, which added a key. Then I moved him up into view to the highest point to overshoot the table, then back down to land on the table, and added a little bounce. So in total I had 5 animation keys for this movement. And then I edited the pacing of them using the function editor, which basically involved making the movement line curved where I wanted a smooth change of direction at the peak of the 2 bounces, and making it a sharp change of direction for when it bounces off the table for the small ending bounce. And then I did the same for the other 2 characters, adjusting the timing based on the audio that I'd imported, so they all entered the screen at the right time. Finally, to add a little bit more life to them, I added a blinking animation to each character and extended their time on screen so that when I rendered out the animation as a GIF, it would last to the end of the video. So the only thing to do then was to add it into my project in Shotcut, and to place it into the timeline at the right time. And just for a bit of fun, I also added the sound effect of clattering pots when they hit the desk. And this was the final outcome. So I've created the Patreon tea service, where you can join the teacups, the tea mugs, or the teapots. So I hope you found that useful, and if you want to see the full Patreon introduction, you can see that here. And you'll find the full-length version of this process in a 4-hour video for my Patreon tea mug and teapot patrons, where I go through this in real time. So why not take a look at that? And I'll see you next week for another tutorial. And that's a Darren Tea.